WGAL News 8 begins with breaking news.
And welcome back to News 8 at noon, everyone. I'm Brian Roach. That breaking news: a suspended Dauphin County district judge accused of shooting her ex-boyfriend in his sleep has been found guilty of attempted murder. News 8's Tom Lehman joins us live from Harrisburg with more on the verdict.
Yeah, Brian, that verdict coming in just a little bit under 2 hours of deliberation by this jury here at the Dauphin County Courthouse here in Harrisburg. And they found Sonia McKnight guilty of attempted murder as well as aggravated assault in this case that stems from what prosecutors have argued from the very beginning was an incident involving her shooting her ex-boyfriend, who had just broken up with her a week prior, at his Susquehanna Township home. This incident happening last year, February 2024. Prosecutors saying McKnight was the only person who could have shot her ex-boyfriend, Michael McCoy, in that home. McCoy said he could not see when he woke up in excruciating pain during the overnight hours of February 10th. He couldn't tell who shot him, but he was adamant that he did not shoot himself. And to his knowledge, McKnight was the only other person in the home when he went to bed. We heard from Cumberland County District Attorney Sean McCormack just shortly ago about the case. He was prosecuting to help avoid any conflicts of interest with county and state law enforcement.
I think what I talked about in my closing is using your common sense. That's what I urge the jurors to do. There were two people in that house, and only two people in that house, and one of them, the one who was shot, said he did not shoot himself. The logical conclusion is the other person did it.
The McKnight was led out of the courtroom after the verdict was read in handcuffs. She was being taken to the Dauphin County prison as she had her bail raised to $3 million after the convictions occurred earlier today. A sentencing is set for May. However, her defense attorney indicated that he intends to appeal the verdict that came out of court today. He said that he simply just does not agree with what prosecutors argued and that McKnight did not shoot McCoy. But again, she will face sentencing in May and was taken to the Dauphin County prison after the verdict was read today. Again, Sonia McKnight, district judge here in the Harrisburg area, convicted of attempted murder and aggravated assault.
In an unprecedented turn of events that has rattled both the legal community and the broader public, a Pennsylvania judge, once trusted to uphold the law, now finds herself on the other side of justice. Judge Sonia McKnight, a former magisterial district judge in Dauphin County, has been found guilty of a crime that many still struggle to comprehend: the attempted murder of her ex-boyfriend. This shocking case underscores a grim reality that domestic violence and personal vendettas can affect anyone, regardless of their status or role in society. The incident occurred in the early morning hours of February 10, 2024, when Judge McKnight entered the Harrisburg residence of her ex-boyfriend, Michael McCoy. While he lay asleep in his bed, she shot him in the head, an act that prosecutors later described as cold and calculated. Miraculously, McCoy survived the attack but sustained permanent injury, with the bullet traveling through his head and lodging in his mattress. What followed was an intense investigation and courtroom drama that captivated many, raising questions not only about the crime itself, but about the responsibilities of those entrusted with power. This case has come to symbolize more than just a personal tragedy. It has sparked broader conversations about abuse of authority, domestic violence, and the importance of accountability, especially when those in high positions of power are involved. Judge Sonia McKnight was once regarded as a respected figure in Pennsylvania's legal system. Serving as a magisterial district judge in Dauphin County, she held a position of authority and public trust. Appointed to her role in a district that demanded fairness, discretion, and a firm grasp of the law, McKnight had built a career that projected professionalism and community service. Her standing in the community was solid. She was one of the few black female judges in the region, often seen as a trailblazer and role model. However, beneath the surface of judicial integrity, a deeply troubling personal narrative was unfolding. McKnight's relationship with Michael McCoy, the man at the center of this tragic case, had begun roughly a year before the shooting. At first, it seemed like a conventional relationship, but according to statements made during the investigation and trial, it quickly became volatile. McCoy, a Harrisburg resident, ultimately decided that the relationship was no longer healthy and attempted to end things with McKnight. However, the judge reportedly refused to accept the breakup and resisted moving out of McCoy's home. Despite his repeated efforts to sever ties, she remained in his life, and tensions mounted. This background, both professional and personal, adds a complex layer to the case. On one hand, McKnight was a symbol of legal authority and a person expected to embody restraint and reason. On the other hand, her private life was spiraling into obsession and control, culminating in an act of violence that betrayed both her role and the law she once swore to uphold. The contrast between her public image and private actions would soon become a central theme in the courtroom and a poignant reflection of how power, when left unchecked by emotional instability, can lead to devastating outcomes. The night of February 9, 2024, began like many other tension-filled evenings in the Harrisburg home of Michael McCoy. Despite his repeated efforts to end their romantic relationship and have her move out, Judge Sonia McKnight was once again in his house. According to McCoy, he had told her she needed to leave, and their final conversation before he went to bed was strained. McCoy later testified that he had been clear. He wanted her out of his life. Still, McKnight remained, and there was no physical altercation or loud argument, just a final, unsettling interaction before he turned in for the night, expecting the morning to bring some clarity or perhaps her departure. What followed, however, was a shocking act of violence that no one could have anticipated from someone sworn to uphold the law. In the early hours of February 10, 2024, McCoy awoke with excruciating pain in his head. At first disoriented, he soon came to the horrifying realization that he had been shot. The bullet had entered near the back of his head and exited through his nose.
Well, Jerry and Lori, a lot of testimony today to sift through, but one of the key things that stuck out is that police who arrived at the shooting scene in this home in Dauphin County, Susquehanna Township, back in February 2024, said that they found Michael McCoy grabbing his head and leaning over a sink when they arrived to what had initially been called in as an EMS emergency that was then being investigated. And again, this is all because of a shooting, and this gunshot injury left him partially blind. Now, the person that prosecutors say was responsible for this shooting, which occurred while McCoy was asleep, was Sonia McKnight. She is that suspended magisterial district judge, and authorities accused her of being upset over a breakup with McCoy, and the weekend prior they said she had been making aggressive contact to McCoy's relatives and other colleagues. She's accused of attempted murder and aggravated assault. Her defense attorney argued that just because she was the only person in the house with McCoy, that it's not indisputable proof she fired the gun that wounded him. That attorney also argued the highest concentration of gunshot residue was on McCoy's hands. But first responders, including police, said McCoy was adamant that he did not shoot himself, with one officer saying that McCoy didn't even know he got shot. Most of the day focused on police testimony of the immediate aftermath of the shooting and finding a firearm in the bed where McCoy was shot. Gunshot residue samples were also discussed, with several samples from McKnight's hands and clothing being found to be inconclusive for gunshot residue, though there were a few positive particular cases for particles that one forensics lab found to be positive. Police also testified that McKnight told police she dropped one of those items found to be inconclusive in a toilet while she was turning over articles of clothing to authorities and investigators. One officer also said McKnight also washed her hands in the aftermath of the immediate investigation, something an expert testified could potentially remove gunshot residue. Now, this case, obviously involving a judge, means there is a lot of people watching this particular case. McKnight's attorneys wanted to have a jury from out of Dauphin County have this particular case. They came in from Delaware County. Not only that, but we also have Cumberland County District Attorney Sean McCormack prosecuting this case as well. Things pick up tomorrow morning. I'll be in the courtroom for the proceedings, and we'll have more then. But for now in Harrisburg, Tom Lehman, News 8.
The investigation into the attempted murder of Michael McCoy began immediately after the incident. When law enforcement arrived at McCoy's Harrisburg residence in the early hours of February 10, 2024, they encountered a crime scene that would soon become the center of national attention. McCoy, though critically injured, was able to provide authorities with critical information. He had been asleep in his bed when he awoke to the piercing pain of a bullet wound to the head. He told police that Judge Sonia McKnight, his ex-girlfriend, had been in the house that night. During the investigation, officers collected forensic evidence from the scene. One of the more contentious elements was the discovery of gunshot residue, GSR, on McCoy's hands. The defense seized upon this detail to argue that McCoy himself might have fired the gun, suggesting either a suicide attempt or a more complicated scenario than the prosecution's narrative allowed. However, experts clarified during the trial that GSR could be transferred from close contact with a recently fired weapon or even from the shooter themselves, particularly in such close quarters as a shared bed. This argument failed to convincingly shift the burden away from McKnight. As the trial commenced, the courtroom was filled with tension. McKnight, a former magisterial district judge in Dauphin County, sat at the defense table, her once esteemed role in the legal system now inverted. The prosecution centered its case on the basic but damning fact: McKnight was the only other person present in the home at the time of the shooting. There were no signs of forced entry or third-party involvement. The state presented a narrative of rejection turned violent. McKnight, unable to accept the end of her relationship with McCoy, resorted to extreme measures. Key testimony came from McCoy himself, who took the stand and recalled the harrowing experience. He recounted waking up with searing pain and confusion, and then realizing he had been shot.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm James Crumwell. That breaking news: Dauphin County Judge Sonia McKnight found guilty of attempted murder. A jury handing down that verdict moments ago. Seth Kaplan live at the Dauphin County Courthouse with the latest. Good afternoon, Seth.
Good afternoon to you, James. Yeah, the case went to the jury 9:30 this morning. Didn't take them long. Shortly after 11, we got word that, in fact, they had reached the verdict. Everybody, as you can imagine, rushed back into the courtroom, and that verdict, as you said, guilty. Guilty, actually, on 2 counts. The more significant count, attempted first-degree murder for the night of her boyfriend, Michael McCoy. Just to recap everything, and I'll get to more details. On trial here was suspended Dauphin County Judge Sonia McKnight back in 2019. She was cleared on charges of shooting her estranged husband in Harrisburg. That was found to be in self-defense. This case was about what happened the morning of February 10th, 2024, along Saddle Ridge Drive in Susquehanna Township. Prosecutors say Michael McCoy, who was Sonia McKnight's boyfriend, woke up blind and in a pool of blood. Everyone agrees the relationship had been rocky. Everyone agrees there were only 2 people in the house when a shot was fired through McCoy's head. Prosecutors say for that and many other reasons, it was clear McKnight shot McCoy, who said he had never had a suicidal thought in his life and pleaded with EMTs and doctors to, quote, save me. McKnight's defense attorney said that was not at all clear. More gunshot residue on McCoy's hand, for example, than on McKnight. The defense alleged, quote, sloppy handling of evidence by Susquehanna Township police. Tried to raise lots of other doubts, but back live, James, not enough in the jury's mind to reach that standard of reasonable doubt that would have caused them to find, for the defense, to find Sonia McKnight not guilty. It was a jury of 6 men and 6 women from Delaware County. We're here in Dauphin County, but almost everybody involved in the case other than Sonia McKnight and Michael McCoy was from outside the county. The DA from Cumberland County, Sean McCormack, the jury from Delaware County, a judge from Lancaster County, all brought in to try to give as much of a fair shot at everybody as possible when you're talking about a suspended judge who was on trial here. Keep in mind, James, the jury did not know that she was a suspended judge. The jury did not know about that previous case that she had allegedly shot, although found to be in self-defense, her former husband. So they were working with less information than some of the rest of us knew going into this case, and yet they felt they had enough information to find her guilty. Bail has now been raised to $3 million. She was immediately put into handcuffs, being taken to Dauphin County Jail.
Seth, you were inside the courtroom when this verdict was read. Can you talk a little bit about what the demeanor was like inside? Did she have a reaction? Did the courtroom have a reaction to this verdict?
The judge and sheriffs had pleaded with everybody inside. They said, everybody had behaved essentially very well for the whole 2-day trial, and then coming into this third morning this morning, they said, please, let's keep that going. And in fact, that is what happened. There were all kinds of emotions from both sides. I mean, if you looked at people's eyes, you could feel the tension, but in terms of any loud, emotive reactions, none at all. They did all comply with those pleas to remain quiet. And Sonia McKnight herself stood up and placed in handcuffs, and her attorney continued to talk to her about what happened next. He did ask the judge for leniency in terms of, and in fact, here we have DA Sean McCormack walking out. So if you bear with me here for just a minute, James, we can hear from the district attorney, Cumberland County. Your reaction?
Obviously, we're pleased. It's been a long road to get to this point. I was just talking with the family. The family is very, very pleased with the outcome. We're very thankful to the jury that we had from Delaware County that traveled here and had to sacrifice away from home for the past 3 days. We're very thankful for the judge for the way that he ran this trial and all of the pre-trial motions and stuff that we dealt with. He was very fair. He was very much straight down the middle with his rulings. I think a lot of this case, a lot of the publicity, even you guys talking to me right now, is because Sonia McKnight is a magisterial district judge here in Dauphin County, and a lot of the focus has been on her. From our side of the case, our focus has been on Mike McCoy. Mike is the one that was injured. Mike is the one that is really a walking miracle that he's still alive, with a bullet that went through his head. And if you heard the doctor, a centimeter off of where that bullet actually went, he would have been dead. So, we are very thankful that the jury heard us and heard Mike in that courtroom, and very pleased with the verdict.
Obviously, no case is perfect. This is one where you had allegations of less than perfect evidence handling by Susquehanna Township Police, for example, called sloppy by the defense. Was there a moment, now that you can tell us this, that you wondered whether they had raised enough doubt to meet that standard of reasonable doubt?
Hey, I never like to jinx myself to say that I think I have a perfect case. So I will tell you, every time I walk into the courtroom, I am nervous, I am anxious, I am worried about everything that occurs in the courtroom. But no, I don't believe at any point in time I felt that there was anything in this case that took the focus away from where we wanted it to be, and that was on Mike McCoy. Things happen. I think in particular about the robe being dropped. The robe really wasn't relevant at all in the course of this trial, and I hope I addressed that during my closing argument.
Sean, when you talk about this case, you did not have that proof, so to speak, that somebody witnessing this happening. Was there concern that you may not be able to convince a jury in that particular regard?
No, I don't think there was ever a concern on our part that we wouldn't be able to convince a jury because there was no eyewitness to the actual crime. I think what I talked about in my closing is using your common sense. That's what I urge the jurors to do. There were 2 people in that house, and only 2 people in that house, and one of them, the one who was shot, said he did not shoot himself. The logical conclusion is the other person did it, and I'm glad the jury ultimately saw the truth in that statement, and they found her guilty on all charges here today.
Can you give us any indication how the McCoy family is feeling at this moment?
Relieved. I've been doing this for a while, and I'll tell you, as I'm waiting for the verdict, I'm very nervous. I'm pacing around. It's a stressful time. They are certainly very much relieved that they're finally getting some justice here. The justice system does not move very fast. It took over a year to get to this point in time. Mike still has a lot of healing to do. He still has, when you look at him, it doesn't look like he's dealing with anything. But really, physically, he's permanently impaired, and I'm sure mentally he's dealing with very, very serious issues.
Do you think it says anything that a district judge was not above the law?
Well, as a prosecutor, I have prosecuted so many different professions, police officers, now a district judge. I don't think anybody should be above the law. I think the law should be applied evenly and equally across the board. And that's the way that I've always proceeded with any cases that I've been involved with, and that's how I intend to continue.
Where does this one rank among cases? You coming over to this county to prosecute because of all the dynamics, because of her notoriety? You've prosecuted a lot of cases. Where does this one fit in with them?
I enjoyed my time coming back here to Dauphin County. I worked here for 30 years before I went across the river. I live in Cumberland County and had an opportunity to become district attorney. I love the Cumberland County District Attorney's Office. It was nice coming back here to visit, but I don't plan on quitting my day job. I'm going back across to Cumberland County. You saw I have a fantastic staff over there. You saw my first assistant district attorney, Courtney Hare LaRue, do an excellent job, really just dismantling the defense expert in this case. And that's the kind of staff that I have over there and the quality of work that I expect as district attorney, and I'm sure the citizens of Cumberland County expect.
And forgive me if you've already addressed this. I mean, the jury was only deliberating for less than 2 hours. I mean, what do you think that says about, your work in this case, the case that you had, and how often, is that common to see less than 2 hours pretty quick?
Well, as the person arguing to them that she's guilty, anything more than 5 minutes makes me nervous. Actually, in my experience, the amount of time that this took was actually pretty much an average amount of time. And it really shows that the jurors were paying attention. They were paying attention and they took this job seriously. They didn't just have a knee-jerk reaction, go, fill out the form, and come downstairs. They gave it some thought, and we really appreciate all the work that this jury did in this case. Okay?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the process in which, who determined what county the jurors were coming out of for this case?
The Supreme Court of Pennsylvania determines which county where the jury came from.
Okay, and do we know if they look at the makeup as far as what's located in that county versus Harrisburg County?
I don't know 100%, but my understanding has always been they try to find a county of similar size and similar dynamic, or similar makeup.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, works.
All right, you have been listening there to that breaking news. That was Cumberland County District Attorney Sean McCormack speaking about the guilty verdict in the case of Dauphin County Judge Sonia McKnight, found guilty of attempted murder. Of course, we'll continue to follow the latest developments in this story. We'll bring you much more in a complete report coming up tonight, beginning on ABC 27 News at 5.
It's essential that we all remain vigilant, support those who may be in harmful relationships, and advocate for stronger education and intervention measures. Justice and accountability must not be reserved only for those without influence. As this case has shown, even those tasked with upholding the law can be capable of violating it in the most egregious ways. It is up to us, as a society, as communities, and as individuals, to ensure that power does not shield wrongdoers from consequences and that victims of violence receive the justice, protection, and support they need. Let this serve not only as a reminder of the tragedy that occurred, but also as a reason to reflect, learn, and take meaningful steps toward preventing similar acts in the future. As we close this deep dive into the case of Judge Sonia McKnight, we want to hear from you. This case brings to light a complex and disturbing intersection of power, trust, and personal turmoil. What are your views on the responsibilities of those in power and the importance of accountability? Do you believe that positions of influence should come with heightened scrutiny, especially in matters involving criminal behavior or abuse? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective helps create a broader, meaningful dialogue around these pressing issues. If you found this story compelling and thought-provoking, we invite you to subscribe to LAT True Crime Stories. We're committed to bringing you more in-depth analyses of true crime cases and open conversations about justice, human behavior, and the societal structures that shape our communities. By subscribing, you become part of a community dedicated to learning, questioning, and advocating for a safer, more informed world. And please, share this video with friends, family, and on your social platforms. By spreading awareness, we can shine a light on the warning signs of domestic violence, emphasize the importance of mental health support, and demand systemic accountability at all levels of society. Every share helps us reach someone who might need this message. Thank you for watching, and stay safe, informed, and engaged.